Hello, everyone. We're going to talk today about the story of the rich man and Lazarus. Some call it a parable, though Luke does not identify it as a parable. Normally he does. The majority of scholars prefer to refer to this story as an exemplary story. An exemplary story is different from a parable in that it's not meant to signify something else, but rather it is meant to illustrate character qualities that Jesus wants to communicate to his audience. And the passage comes from Luke 16, verses 19 to 31. Let's first look at some repetition throughout this passage. First of all, we see Abraham mentioned here, was that 6 times? Now remember that Abraham was the father of the covenant, the father of promise. The online Jewish encyclopedia refers to him as the prototype of the Jewish race. It's significant that this parable was addressed in part at least to the Pharisees, who Luke describes as being lovers of money, whose hearts were far from God. Yet these men considered themselves to be the true sons of Abraham. Their wealth, according to their way of thinking, was a sign of God's blessing and seal of approval. And just as Abraham was blessed by God and prospered and became a wealthy man in his day. Another concept that's repeated here is the idea of the side of Abraham, or the bosom of Abraham, as some of the older translations used to translate it. And this simply is a place of comfort, it's more of an expression that they are of the true children of Abraham. They belong to Abraham. And then we have the concept of torment and anguish. Although the two words are different and they do express different ideas, torment being more of a physical type of pain, whereas anguish is more of a mental type of pain. But nevertheless, the concept is repeated. We also have death, referred to quite frequently here 4 times. This is an example of contrasting parallelism or repetition, but that's also contrasting in the fact that both men died, hence the repetition, but their death experiences were completely different. In a sense, this passage is more of a parable or a story of contrast than any other thing. This is the salient point of the story. First of all, we have the basic contrast between a rich man and a poor man, mentioned twice in the passage. And then we have the death of the 2 men. The poor man dies and is carried away by the angels, whereas the rich man just simply dies and is buried. And then we have the idea that Abraham is far off to the rich man. There's this distance, whereas Lazarus is right at his side in fellowship with Abraham. And then we have the contrast that the rich man enjoyed good things in this life, whereas Lazarus bad things, and the roles are reversed. And now the rich man experiences bad things and Lazarus is comforted. A couple passages here I want us to look at because this is a common theme in Jesus, and that is the reversal of roles. In Matthew 20:16, this familiar saying of Jesus, the last will be first and the first will be last. And also in Luke 1:52, in the Song of Mary at the birth of Jesus, he has brought down the mighty from their thrones and exalted those of humble estate. Evidently, this is part of what pleases God, to take somebody who thinks themselves high and mighty and are not humble of heart and bring them down and exalt those who have been trampled upon in this life. Another contrast that we have is the anguish versus being comforted. I've already mentioned that, but that is a significant contrast here. I have this quote here from one of the early church leaders, Peter Chrysologus, lived from 380 to 450, who wrote a sermon about this passage, and one of his quotes is, "O rich man, Abraham cannot send to the bed of your tortures, Lazarus, whom you did not condescend to admit to your table. Your respective fortunes have now been reversed. You look at the glory of him whose misery you once spurned." Again, the idea of role reversal. We also have the interesting fact that Lazarus is introduced by name, whereas the other is just an unnamed rich man.